There are moments in life that completely change the way we see ourselves. For years, many people live with invisible struggles, thinking something is wrong with them, when in reality the truth has been hidden all along. Today, I want to share a deeply personal story, one that completely changed the trajectory of my life. It's about a diagnosis I didn't see coming, a condition that had quietly shaped my entire existence. What I'm about to reveal may surprise you, because it's not just about me. It's about an entire generation of people, especially women, who were overlooked, mislabeled, and left struggling in silence. This is the story of how I discovered I had adult ADHD, and how that single realization opened the door to understanding decades of anxiety, self-doubt, and struggle. But more importantly, it's about the signs you may not realize are connected to ADHD, and the hope that comes once you finally see the truth. The unexpected discovery. The discovery didn't come from me. It started with my child. Like so many parents, I noticed struggles at school, distraction, frustration, and learning challenges. We did the testing, we met with professionals, and eventually the diagnosis was clear: ADHD, alongside other learning differences. As I sat there listening to the results, something inside me shifted. The descriptions, the patterns, the behaviors, they didn't just sound familiar because I was looking at my child. They sounded familiar because they were me. For years, I had lived with the same challenges: forgetting important tasks, running late, feeling scattered, constantly battling disorganization. And for years, I had written it off as a personal flaw, something broken in me that I could never quite fix. That day, for the first time, I asked myself a life-changing question. What if this wasn't anxiety? What if it was ADHD all along? The curse of the lost generation. What followed was both liberating and heartbreaking. After finally getting my own diagnosis, I realized I wasn't alone. In fact, there's an entire generation that researchers now call the lost generation. People, especially women, who were never diagnosed as children because ADHD was only studied in boys. When ADHD was first defined in the 1970s, the focus was on young boys who displayed obvious hyperactivity, fidgeting, blurting out answers, bouncing in their seats. But girls often don't show those symptoms. Instead, ADHD in girls hides beneath the surface. It looks like daydreaming, disorganization, forgetfulness, and self-criticism. And because those symptoms are quieter, they were dismissed as personality quirks or signs of immaturity. Teachers and doctors overlooked them. Parents didn't recognize them. And girls grew into women carrying the heavy weight of thinking they were simply not good enough. The reality of undiagnosed ADHD. Here's the truth that shook me. When ADHD is missed, the consequences are devastating. Girls with undiagnosed ADHD are far more likely to develop anxiety, depression, eating disorders, and even self-harm tendencies. Not because they are broken, but because they spend their entire lives believing something is wrong with them. Imagine sitting in a classroom where everyone else seems to turn in assignments on time, keep their lockers neat, remember instructions. And you're the one always late, always messy, always forgetting, always scrambling. Over time, you don't just think you're different, you think you're defective. That was me. For decades, I carried crushing self-doubt. Every forgotten appointment, every missed deadline, every careless mistake felt like proof that I was failing at life. I thought I was anxious. I thought I was lazy. I thought I was broken. In reality, I had ADHD. How ADHD impacts the brain. To truly understand ADHD, you need to understand what's happening in the brain. ADHD is not a lack of intelligence. It's not a character flaw. It's a neurobiological condition that affects the brain's prefrontal cortex, the area responsible for directing attention, suppressing distractions, and staying organized. Think of your brain like an orchestra. Every instrument represents thoughts, emotions, distractions, and sensory input. Normally, the conductor, your prefrontal cortex, steps up and silences unnecessary noise so the right instruments can play. That's how attention works. But in a brain with ADHD, the conductor struggles. The orchestra never quiets down. The noise is constant, overwhelming, and impossible to control. This is why people with ADHD may hyperfocus on video games or creative projects for hours, but struggle to complete simple everyday tasks. It's not about effort or willpower. It's about how the brain directs attention. The differences between boys and girls. One of the biggest reasons women go undiagnosed is that ADHD looks very different depending on gender. Boys typically show their struggles externally, fidgeting, acting out, struggling to sit still. Girls, however, turn inward. They daydream, they forget things, they lose track of time, and then they blame themselves. Boys often get flagged early by teachers because their behavior disrupts class. Girls often mask their symptoms, overcompensating by working harder, hiding their struggles, and silently wondering why life feels so much harder for them than it does for everyone else. The heartbreaking truth? Research shows that while boys sometimes improve as they grow older, girls often get worse. What starts as forgetfulness or disorganization in childhood often grows into anxiety, depression, and burnout in adulthood. The signs you may be missing. So, what are the surprising signs of adult ADHD? Here are just a few that often get overlooked. Chronic disorganization, no matter how hard you try. Forgetfulness that affects daily life. Feeling restless inside, even when sitting still. Struggling to follow through on tasks you care about. Daydreaming and zoning out during important moments. Harsh self-criticism that leaves you feeling inadequate. I had all of them, every single one. And for nearly half a century, nobody saw it. The hope in understanding. Yes, there's pain in realizing this late, but there's also hope. ADHD is not a life sentence. It is not the end of your potential. In fact, people with ADHD are often among the most creative, innovative, and resilient individuals in the world. They are entrepreneurs, problem solvers, risk takers, visionaries. The key is understanding, because when you finally know what you're dealing with, you can support yourself with strategies, therapies, and sometimes medication that completely change the game. You can learn how to direct your energy, how to structure your environment, and how to embrace the strengths that ADHD gives you. For me, the diagnosis was both a blessing and a curse. A blessing because I finally had an explanation for decades of struggle. A curse because I couldn't help but wonder how different life might have been if I had known sooner. But here's the truth. It's never too late. If any of this resonates with you, I want you to know you are not broken. You are not lazy. You are not less than. You may simply have a brain that works differently. And with the right understanding and support, that difference can become your greatest strength. So ask yourself, could this be me? Could this be the missing piece of the puzzle? Because if it is, then today can be the beginning of a completely new chapter in your life.